up, y'all? My name is The Sheep, and it is back. The return of the Underground Sound, the podcast for your mom's ass. And this time we're coming out the box with one hell of an interview. Fresh off his retirement from UPW Pro Wrestling, we're talking with NERD RAGE Melvin Hayes. Melvin's going to be talking all about his career. He's going to be talking about the time that he spent in the military. He's going to be talking about how he got broke into the business. Melvin's going to share all the ups and downs, what it was like to become the UPW Heavyweight Champion, working with former WWE superstars Eugene and Rhino, some of his favorite angles, his retirement, and what he plans to do going forward as far as the wrestling business is concerned. It's going to be one hell of an interview, and I'm glad to have it. We're back. The Underground Sound, the podcast for your mom's ass. Here he is, NERD RAGE. Check it out. With Melvin Hayes, NERD RAGE Melvin Hayes, a.k.a. Adam Hayes. Adam, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Sheep. How are you doing?
Doing real good. You know, I wanted to say it because I wanted to talk to you because you just recently retired from pro wrestling. You announced that. So I wanted to talk to you anyway when I thought about, rebooting the podcast here. You were on my list of people I'd like to interview eventually, but with you retiring, it's just like perfect timing to get that conversation out there and, see if people like it or whatnot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm certainly hoping they don't poop on it too much.
Well, I want to talk to you all about your retirement and all that stuff. When you were, because, mostly wrestling conversation here. When you were a kid, did you like wrestling?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. My mom told me that even as young as 2 years old, I'd wrestle around with my little stuffed animal, a stuffed bunny named Flopsy, who was hell of a worker, that guy.
Like wrestling up.
And I'd come up with angles and, legitimately lose matches to the stuffed bunny.
So you used to put the stuffed bunny over on.
Oh yeah. Well, he's a solid worker. Gets going places.
Yeah. That's funny. So you were pretty much as far back as you remember, you were a wrestling fan?
Oh, absolutely.
Who did you like growing up?
Well, I was a big Hulk Hogan fan growing up, but I really got into guys like Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart, and Roddy Piper was a favorite, and especially the Macho Man. I'd say Macho was far and above my favorite wrestler. Yes.
Yeah, Macho was always one of my faves, too. I started watching in the Hulk Hogan Macho Warrior area, just kind of like what you were talking about. I was never a big Hulk Hogan fan. Like, I never didn't like him, but he was never, I was never a big Hogan fan. I was always more Macho and Warrior back then.
Yeah.
And even
there's one match that really sticks out. It was Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam 92, or I think it was 92, 91, 92, something like that. And I must have watched that match 10,000 times. Almost had it memorized back to front, and it was just incredible. Well worth a watch if you haven't seen that one yet. Yeah, for sure.
Was it the wrestling style or more the character back then at that point? Because
all the above.
Now people would talk about, they'd be like, oh yeah, internet people and everything. Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect's work rate and all, all the terms and stuff. But I mean, back then when you were a kid, you didn't really necessarily recognize the work rate of a wrestler. I mean, maybe subconsciously, but I think it was a lot more character driven at that age.
Mm-hmm. I think probably what drew me in initially was the characters. You had excellence versus perfection, which is a great way to start things out. But as I got older, and especially now, I look at that, and everything was so precisely done, and everything was for a reason. It was just absolutely brilliant.
Do you do a lot of studying of wrestling matches now that you are a wrestler? Like, do you
Definitely.
look
That
at
was
matches in a different way?
yeah. I made the transition, I'll call it a transition anyway, from watching wrestling just to watch wrestling to watching wrestling to see when, where, and why things are done.
Even before you became a wrestler, did you pay attention to that kind of stuff, or was that something that you never even really thought about until you became a wrestler?
I guess I kind of looked at it that way when I was younger, but that was mostly the, oh wow, what a cool move, I'd love to do that someday sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So pretty much as far back as you can remember, you liked the guys who could actually work.
Mm-hmm.
So were you said you had like wild days when you were a kid. How were you like in high school? Were you a partier? Were you like...
Oh no, I was a band geek, a theater geek. Stayed at home on the weekends and played Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, so so the nerd thing really is definitely an extension of yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes I'd say Melvin is more Adam than Adam is.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't get to see a lot of that, when we do interact, it's usually, just been at wrestling shows and stuff, but I don't really get to see too much of the nerdy side of you. I'd like to think I'm a pretty big nerd geek myself. Were you like, so you were like the band geek and everything, were you like book smart and stuff too? Did you get straight A's and all of that?
My grades were, I call them remarkably average. I really didn't apply myself in school because I just didn't see much a point in homework. I guess I thought if I couldn't get it done in class, it just wasn't going to get done.
Yeah.
Two areas that I really felt that I shined was English and history.
Okay.
Those were definite strong suits of mine because I'm a bit of a freak about grammar. There's just some fireworks going off in the background. I walk down the street and people start blowing things up.
Yeah, well, that's good. Puts a little excitement.
And history has always fascinated me. I think it's really interesting seeing the same thing repeat itself over and over and over again, and nobody quite seems to pick up that simple formula that's used to do just about anything you want.
Yeah, so do you see patterns in today's society that are similar to those in the past that you've studied?
Oh, definitely.
Like what, for example?
And I don't know how much flack I'm going to catch for this, but if you look at the rise of Benito Mussolini and compare it with the mannerisms of Trump, constantly trying to make a larger caricature of yourself and appear way larger than life.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of similarities there. And that's, of course, not to say that Trump is a fascist or anything. It's just little noticeable things, body language, really.
Okay. So you see some Mussolini in Trump?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, if you watch him when he performs a speech, Mussolini had a very big way of presenting himself. And Trump has a lot of the same things, and really you see it a lot in pro wrestling too. The world is a work after all.
I was just gonna add, don't you think? I mean, Trump, much more than a politician, is an entertainer. That's what he's been doing his whole life. Don't you think? Just being bigger than life in general is a trademark of being an entertainer. Maybe a little bit unfamiliar to politicians because not many have made that transition before.
Yeah, I think that's why you see, like, Jesse the Body Ventura, for example, knew how to work the crowd.
Yeah. Yep.
Schwarzenegger, same thing. Work a crowd really, really well. If you can put a crowd in the palm of your hand, you can tell them anything that they want, that even they might not want to hear, but they're going to just buy into it because they don't want to be the odd man out when the rest of the crowd is cheering. What
do you think of UPW alumni Rhino running for office?
I think it's great. Rhino's a really phenomenal guy. I got a fun story that I'm working on getting a lot of mileage out of about the first time that I met Rhino.
Okay, go ahead.
My second show with UPW, the second show in general, and Rhino was slated to appear, and I was really pumped because I absolutely loved Rhino, especially in like the late 90s. Him and Tajiri were the reason I started watching ECW. I remember they were having a match, and Tajiri blasted Rhino with that buzzsaw kick of him right when Rhino was going for the gore, and I was sold 100% right there. But Rhino comes back, and he's, smiling. He's kind of a nice guy. Never want to tell anyone that because Rhino's an absolute man beast.
Yes, yes.
The moniker is absolutely legit. But he's, oh yeah, man, call me, insert real name here.
Right.
And I'm like, oh God, my childhood is destroyed. What has happened here? And then he got into his singlet, and I saw him make the transformation from his normal self to Rhino, and he was doing, he was flexing his muscles and staring at the mirror and grimacing. And I'm like, oh, it's just such a cool moment.
Yeah.
I really have a lot of these super dorky moments where I get totally starstruck, and I do my best to hide it, and I'm sure I fail miserably at that.
Well, I think everybody does. It's just, I don't think there's any difference just because you're on one side of the barricade, if you will, or one side of the entrance, or on the other. I think, once a fan, always a fan. And when you see somebody that you grew up watching, I mean, I'm sure he did just the same, when he first started getting into the business and seeing people that he grew up watching.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
And I think, being on the other side of the fence, the other difference would be is you learn how to handle that instead of, like, running up and asking them to sign your nipples or something,
I do have quite a few nipple signatures, though. That's a point of pride in my collection.
Yes, absolutely. So, out of high school, you got into the military. What led to that decision?
Well, part of it was I wanted to be able to make sure I could pay for college. I always say my sister's the one with the real brains in the family, and she really applied herself in school. I'm just kind of a unintentional slacker.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that she could, go through and have, all the benefit of whatever, parents helping out or whatever happened to be. But also every male in my family, except for one or two, has served in the military since we got to this country. So figured I wanted to keep that family tradition going, and so yeah, I did that and came out with some wild stories, some miserable stories, and a little bit of everything.
Yeah, man, I got a lot of respect for that. When I was younger, when I was about that age to be going in, to get out of high school, I was real rebellious, and I was anti-military in general. It was the Bush era, so you can imagine. But, looking back at it, I ended up going to college and everything, but it wasn't till like 4 or 5 years after high school. Looking back at it, I really wish I would have went into the military. One, it would have just disciplined me a little bit more, and like you had said, I would have came out of it with a little bit of money and maybe a little bit better direction that I didn't have at the time. When you got into the military, well, first of all, how was basic training? Like, was it a breeze? Was it tough? Was it overrated?
Compared to, like, I have a black belt in Taekwondo, and I've done a whole bunch of Muay Thai kickboxing, and at that point I was training for wrestling too. Not officially training, but working at least. Mm-hmm. And those things combined made basic training just a breeze. You could always count on someone being dumber than you. So there's always someone to take the heat off you. But in basic, minus getting yelled at all the time, was totally awesome. You run around in the mud, shoot weapons, blow things up. Super cool stuff. It's what every 12-year-old dreams of. Plus, I was a really fast eater growing up. I don't know why, but I just wolfed my food down. So I was the only dude in my company getting like second and third servings because drill sergeant said you can have as much as you like, but you have 20 minutes to eat.
Oh, wow.
Or if that, 10, 20 minutes, whatever it happened to be at the time. But yeah, I just plow through my food, and I actually wound up putting on 60 pounds in basic training.
Oh, geez. Most people lose weight when they go in.
Yeah, I had a buddy that lost 60, so I just figured we swapped.
So it was pretty easy for you, mostly because you had a lot of conditioning and strengthening tactics down already from your other training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say that was a definite benefit there.
Okay, and what did you end up doing in the military? What was your job there, and did you have any say in that? You were what?
a combat engineer officially, but as with any branch of the service, you wind up being butcher, baker, and candlestick maker.
Okay.
So I did vehicle repair, infantry stuff, combat engineer stuff, office work. I was a member of our headquarters company when we deployed to Iraq, and really only did actual combat engineer duties about twice, unless you count filling sandbags or digging out bathrooms and stuff like that as an actual duty. Duty. But
did you?
Yeah,
there's
just so many things that you wind up doing on any given day. It kind of works with someone that has some attention deficit because you're always doing something different.
Did you enjoy your time there then?
No, it sucked. I hated it. The Army and I did not get along.
Why was that?
I like to think through problems, and if I saw a point where you could go from point A to point B without stopping at point E through F on the way there, I figured that was probably just the better way to go, and other people didn't see it that way.
Okay, so you butted heads with some of the higher-ups?
Yeah, there was a few I didn't get along with, but I had this captain, and I can't say enough good things about this guy. I was his driver in Iraq, and he is absolutely the single best officer that has ever been in the United States military, hands down.
How long did you spend in Iraq?
I spent 12 months and some change in Iraq. Then 2 or 3 weeks on either side of that in Kuwait, either getting our stuff ready to go in or getting our stuff ready to come out. I did a year in South Korea, and South Korea was totally amazing as well. It was the only place other than here that ever felt like home.
Really?
Yeah, I absolutely loved South Korea. That was quite an experience. Made a bunch of really good friends there, and still keep in touch with them to this day.
What was it about South Korea?
The culture, the people, the food, the scenery. Just everything was magical, really. It was like another world.
So you were overseas for a little over a year, roughly a year. How long were you in the military altogether?
I was in the military for about 3 years, and let's see, my schedule was about 3 months in Missouri for training, a year in South Korea, a month in Kansas, a month in Korea, 2 months in Kansas, a couple weeks in Kuwait, a year in Iraq, a couple weeks in Kuwait, and then 3 months in Kansas, and then I got out.
What was your favorite weapon to shoot?
I like the M4. That was, it was a shorter variety of military grade rifles. I liked it mostly because it was easy to fit in the driver's seat. I didn't have to wrestle with a longer barrel on it.
Right.
That was a pretty good time. I always wish that I could have tried the the 208, the grenade launcher attachment for it.
Oh, geez.
That looked like it would have been kind of fun to shoot off.
Did you ever get to work with any explosives?
Oh yeah, that was a big part of my job when I actually got to do combat engineer stuff. We shot, the biggest payload I've exploded was about 800 pounds of C4. And from somewhere around a mile away, it felt like you were getting punched in the chest when the wave hit you.
Wow.
So that was quite a boom. And got to fire off this thing called a Miklik. It's a rocket with a C4 rope, I guess you'd call it. A rope of C4 bricks attached to it. And it's for clearing out minefields and stuff like that. So you fire the rocket over, make sure the vehicle ahead of you is clear of all explosives, and you pop it and it explodes, and see the gigantic fireball coming towards you.
Have you ever seen any enemy fire while you were over there?
Bits and pieces here and there.
You say it so casually, like, a little bit, not so bad.
I can say that I didn't get into it as much as some guys did, and I'm very thankful for that. I don't get caught up in the who's is bigger contest.
Yeah.
I always figure everyone's own stuff is the worst thing that's ever happened to them, and that's things are the way they are, and I'm glad, at least for my part of it, that it wasn't as severe as some guys had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, definitely could be worse.
Oh yeah.
When you get out, At this point, you said you were already kind of dipping your toe into training for wrestling while you were in there, or before you went in there. When you get out, is this about the time where you're like, okay, I'm going to pursue wrestling more heavily now?
Yeah, my initial plan on getting out was to go to the Can-Am Wrestling School. I had emailed back and forth with Scott Demore a little bit at the recommendation of Mickey Doyle, who, another wonderful name. If I must name drop anyone, he's certainly a fun guy. And so yeah, I had intended to go to the Can-Am school, but decided on going to Northern instead and seeing what I could accomplish from up here. And
okay.
At the time, I was...
So you went to college instead of a wrestling school.
Right, yeah, I went to Northern Michigan University.
Uh-huh.
And got a little bit lost in the party scene, like you do, and spent a lot of time, kind of drinking and not doing a whole lot other than smelling bad.
Yeah.
But eventually, I got my stuff together. Well, I did a training camp and then worked security for a show for NWA ACW down by Green Bay, in this little itty bitty sneeze of a town called Pound, Wisconsin.
Right on.
So
is ACW, is that Hornswoggle's, or is this a different one?
I'm pretty sure that's his. I don't know a whole lot of the ownership of things.
Yeah, because I know he's been pretty open about he runs one of those in Wisconsin, and I'm almost positive it's the ACW.
I never got to meet him.
Yeah, you'd think. I mean, he's regional. You know what I mean?
Oh wait, no, I did. He came to a UPW show once, and as Melvin, I said, "Oh my God, it's Hornswoggle!" That was the larger extent of our conversation. I mean, he was really, really busy with stuff that he had going on at the time.
Was he working that show, or was he just there?
No, he was just he was there in the locker room.
Right.
A couple of his ACW guys were there, and they were hanging out, catching up on stuff, and I didn't want to get in the middle of that.
Word.
I don't too much care for interrupting conversation. I just throw in odd little quips when I can.
Right on. So, who, did you have, any one specific trainer then, or you just kind of did a camp, or, who would you attribute?
I did a camp with ACW. The person that got me started up was Supreme Red Powers of UPW. He was the one that first showed me how to bump and how to at least start working, and then gradually when I got to UPW was when things really started kicking and I started learning a lot more.
How did you end up meeting Brett?
I went to a show that a group that he was working for did in Gladstone, Michigan at the Terrace Bay. We'll start out at the beginning, because if you don't know where to start, go back to the beginning.
Sure.
In 2000, there was a show at Kingsford High School. I went to that, and that's where I first saw Mickey Doyle. Then there was a show at the Iron Mountain View Ice Arena, and I saw Mickey Doyle again. A buddy of mine went up and asked him if he was training anyone, and he said he wasn't, but he knew someone that was, so he introduced me to this guy named Randy Miller, and through Randy Miller, I wound up meeting Brett Powers at the first night of our little training dojo thing.
Was Randy Miller, was that the substitute high school teacher?
Yeah.
That's funny. I had that guy for a lot of classes, and
okay.
We didn't get along at all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can tell you from the adult perspective, he's actually a super cool dude.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, if he's involved with the wrestling thing, I know he was involved in Escanaba too for a while, but man, did he just not like a class clown troublemaker.
I would imagine.
Yeah, so you break into the business via the Phantom, Mr. Miller, and Supreme Brett Powers. How does that lead you up into UPW is the first Fed that you actually like? That was your first match, was in UPW, correct?
Right. Yeah. UPW was my very first match.
Who was your first match?
It was me against Playboy Paul Richards.
Okay, was he Paul or was he?
He was a lot shorter than I was. I'd say he was like 5'6", 5'8". And to his credit, he took really good care of me in that match. I was naturally greener than grass, and of course still am, but I kind of like being green. I've heard it's not easy.
Was he green in this match too?
He didn't seem like it.
Green feathered?
To me, he called it. Gave me a whole bunch of spots, gave me my shine, and really took good care of me. So I definitely respect him, and I appreciate all of his work a lot for that. Lugging my gigantic keister through the first match couldn't have been easy, but it actually wound up being pretty good. Among my favorite matches anyway. I've got matches that I consider much better, much more fun. But that one, the first one's always special. So
what did you learn in your first match? What did you like? What was one of the first things, or couple things that you realized inside of your first match that maybe you didn't think about while you were training, or just didn't have a full grasp of, or what really hit you when you were in the ring? Besides probably in the face.
Probably the most notable thing was that I really needed to remember to breathe.
You would just stop breathing while you were working?
Yeah, I'd hold my breath in and just try and go through and do the stuff that we were going to do, and it was all basic stuff, which works universally.
Yeah.
But I'd try to catch my breath here and there, and for some reason, despite the Taekwondo and Muay Thai and military and all that, I just forgot to breathe. You get out there, out amongst the crowd, and start working, and you feel that rush, and better judgment just kind of goes out the window.
Were you nervous at all to be in front of a crowd?
I didn't think I would be. Like we had talked about my theater experience. I was used to being in front of a crowd. Both, I did scripted plays, improv comedy. I'd played in the marching band, sang in chorus, did solo pieces. But the wrestling crowd is completely different. They're so passionate and so loud, especially for a guy that, who's this joker? I never seen him before. Melvin Hayes, he wears a dang tie.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, because I was there at that show. I don't think anybody ever thought that way. I think you were a hit right off the bat with the crowd. I think they
thank you.
Immediately accepted you.
It felt great. The UPW crowd is just so much fun. There's mostly such wonderful people. There's always going to be an exception or two, but by and large, they're amazing human beings to be around.
It's fun. It's fun to be on both sides of it, and I know you got a little taste of that. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But to be a fan favorite and then to be hated by the fans, it's so much fun, man. Yeah, a crowd like that'll work. They're interactive with you. Yeah, it's great. It's good stuff. If you're getting some kind of reaction, then it's a good thing. Who came up with the Nerd Rage character? Like, how did you become Melvin Hayes?
I was talking with Peter B. Beautiful before I got started on all this. We were trying to figure out what I would do, and we came up. There was a couple different ideas that got tossed around, and one of them was cringeworthy. Of course, there's always that one. But
what was
we were
that
talking,
one?
he said,
you gotta say
I was going to be the executioner.
Okay.
Judge Jesse and Brett Powers were in the main event that night, and I was going to be Judge Jesse's executioner, which on one hand would have put me in the main event right away.
Yep.
Which super cool. First match main event. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, that might have been the only time I ever got to be there if that was the case. So Pete said,
not much
well, how do you
mileage
feel
in
about
an executioner, right?
Yeah. So Pete said, how do you feel about being a nerd? And at the time, I was one of those internet wrestling fans.
Yep.
work, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I kind of poo-pooed the idea a little bit. I figured I'll do this for a couple of shows, and then, hopefully I'll be able to kind of pick my own direction after that. But the original name was going to be Melvin Poindexter. And I said, that seems a bit too much. Why don't we go with Melvin Hayes?
Yep.
Because I thought Hayes is a good wrestling name. Michael P.S. Hayes, and so we went with Melvin Hayes, and that just kind of stuck. And within 2 shows, I was so hooked on the Melvin character that I finally got to be. We were talking about turning me heel in my last, what turned out to be part of my last year, and I missed Melvin a lot. It was just awkward being myself. And as it turns out, I'm not a very good heel because my wife says I look just goofy.
And so, Peter B. Beautiful made you the Nerd Rage Melvin Hayes. A great character for you. Wasn't the first time a wrestling nerd's been done, but it hasn't been done to death. It hasn't been done in a long time. We remember Jameson from the early 90s, but I mean, beyond that, I can't think of a nerd, that's really been a character. And I mean, the way that you rocked that character, I mean, like I said, the fans took to you right away. What were some of the highlights of being, like, you worked with Eugene, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. That was my, 4th or 5th match, and I got thrown into this 6-man tag with Eugene, and there was,
the giant chicken.
Yeah, the green chicken.
It was you,
Eugene,
the chicken,
and myself
and Eugene.
Against Brett Powers, Jonathan Smash, and Nathan Gust.
The SWO, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and all of the SWO was just glorious to work with. They're all. Oh yeah, I couldn't get enough of it. Actually, and Jonathan Smash is on my list of favorite matches, which we can get to later. But yeah, that was a fun match, and I'm still totally clueless as to what to do in the ring. And once again, I'm counting on all these super talented guys around me to drag my butt through this thing. And I'm sure Eugene got a couple good laughs out of it, and but he definitely taught me a few things afterwards. Pulled me aside, gave me a rundown of the things I did right, the things I can improve, and I'm very appreciative of that. He didn't have to do that, and it was super cool that he did.
And did he offer you that? You didn't even ask his advice. He
Nope.
offered that to you, correct?
I didn't have to ask. He just pulled all of us aside and gave us each a rundown. And what a brilliant wrestling mind that guy is. There's a reason he is one of my favorites. I totally popped when Pete told me that I was going to be tagging with Eugene.
And what a good guy too. I had a chance to sit and talk with him that night too. Eugene's he's cool as hell. He's funny as hell. Real laid back. That was one of the things, coming from being a music promoter and all the concert acts that I worked with doing music, one of the big differences I noticed right away is anybody in the music business with a little bit of star power that I worked with, I would say 80 to 90% of them were dicks. They thought very highly of themselves. They were rude, blew you off, treated you like you were less. In the wrestling business, the wrestlers, with any wrestler with a little bit of name to them, they're all just really great guys, very friendly, open, easygoing,
I discovered that as well. I only do music on a real small scale, like just some guitar gigs around my hometown. But even some of the hometown people are a little bit stuck up, and that was always really uncomfortable because I just figured we're out here to make music and have fun, just have fun with it.
Right.
But yeah, with the wrestlers, everyone is just so friendly, so cool to chat with.
Yeah, for sure. Now, tell me about working with Joey Avalon. What was that all about? Because this was now after I had left, so I wasn't really, wasn't really keeping up on what was going on there. You had a thing where Joey was like your best friend or like your wrestling hero or something? What was going on there?
Yeah. Well, the idea was, Joey Avalon, first and foremost, is awesome. He's an incredible worker, really super awesome guy to be around. I just generally get a charge out of him no matter what, and I'm a legit fan of his too. Watching him work is more often than not a thing of beauty, and even when it's not, he's significantly better than I am. So, I appreciate him on several different levels.
Yeah.
But Pete and I were tossing around some ideas, and he had mentioned trying to get Joey to be my BFF, and I thought, doing this with Joey was it was fun, because he played we're like the odd couple. He played the straight man, and I'm the absolute lunatic, and it was really great. We met by him super kicking me in the face after I was so excited. Oh my God, it's Joey Avalon! And bam, super kick down.
Yeah.
And we progressed along with this thing, and in one of the coolest moments, Supreme Brett Powers and I had tagged up against Team Dick Smash, Jonathan Smash, and Devin Drake, and that was a really fun match. That was the first time Brett and I ever teamed up on the same side, anyway. And what a great time we had! And a good match. Crowd was hot. Where was I going with this? My brain doesn't always work. That's Joey Avalon. Okay, so Joey, and I was the UPW heavyweight champion at the time, having beaten Brett Powers for it the month before. In the wild world of wrestling, you beat a guy 1 month and team up with him the next.
Yes.
But
it's the logical next step.
Yeah. They had this thing where Joey Avalon got, fired for something or another. I forget what it was. But Joey was out earlier, and he apologized to the crowd and came back, and he came out to save the day after Dick Smash was, beating me up. And he made like he was going to give me another super kick, and I just kind of cringed like, oh, God, no. And then I got to do the Joey Avalon jet pose with him. And, yet another moment of legit just marking out, popping, whatever you want to call it.
So, what was it like when Brett dropped the title to you and you were the UPW champion? Was this your first title? In winning that, what was that realization?
Well, my first title was the UPW alternative title.
Okay, you were alternative first?
Yeah. I had been gone for a while after my daughter was born, and came back, and I needed to transition the title off to someone, so I was close, so they just kind of picked, Pete just kind of picked me. So I had no idea I was going to win that night, and all the emotion and surprise on my face that you see after that little title victory there is 100% legit. Because I was using this move called the honor roll, Fisherman's Neckbreaker, at the time, and I hit Paul Richards with the honor roll, 1, 2, and I'm saying, kick out. And he says, you're winning. And no, I'm not.
So you didn't know until you were actually on top of him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had him hooked in the cradle pin, and that's when I found out I was winning. And
so you didn't even have time. You won that title right then and there.
Yeah. So I was. We'll just call that a fully legit title win.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like every ounce of emotion is real at that point. You know, not that it wouldn't be anyway, but I mean.
Yeah. And it was a very cool moment. There's some actual tears coming out of my face, and that moment was like the beginning of me realizing that the dream could actually come true.
Now compare that to the heavyweight title win.
That one was cool because it was my first. The heavyweight title is in a division all by itself because it's the heavyweight title. It's the big one of the company.
Yep.
For some reason, they thought I was good enough to hold it, and I must have talked really good and fooled a whole bunch of people. But I was super pumped to have it. It was my dream, or my goal, I should say, ever since I knew this was what I wanted to do, to hold the heavyweight championship, or insert major title for one group that I worked for. So in that moment, I absolutely realized the dream, accomplished my goal. It was phenomenal. And to do it with the guy that helped break me in made it just that much more special.
Yeah, for sure. And, Brett is he's a cornerstone at UPW. He was around back in the 90s when the first UPW, when they were still fresh out of high school, when that started, Brett was around. So, he is UPW. So for him, to drop that belt to you, definitely.
Yeah, it was a very big compliment to me, and I'm, once again, as you'll hear several more times, I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity, and that's truly something I'll never forget.
Have you ever come across anybody in the locker room by the name of Mr. E?
I've heard of Mr. E. I heard he's from parts unknown, and he's a generally unpleasant grappling jerk.
Did you ever get along with that guy?
For a guy that says your local sports team sucks, I can't abide that. The dude does not abide, man.
It's funny because I always thought you guys had a beef because, you and Mr. E were never at the same show together. It was strange.
Yeah. We disliked each other so intensely that we were never seen in the locker room at the same time.
Well, hopefully you get the chance to bury that hatchet. I want to put that out right now here. That, Mr. E, if he's listening, that, Melvin would like to bury the hatchet with you, sir.
Oh, well, I'm glad you put that out there, because I just don't know if I'd ever have the opportunity to talk to him. He doesn't really talk, he just goes, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I was never under the impression he was an English speaker even, but who knows.
It's hard to say. He seems to have galloped off into the wild wilderness of parts unknown again, and you never know if he's ever going to pop up, or when, or where. So,
you were Melvin Hayes. The fans loved you. You won the alternative title, you said, and then the UPW title. What goes into the heel turn? Why? What led up to it, and how did it work out for you?
Well, when Joseph Schwartz beat me using his title opportunity that he had won, we were really trying to push how frustrated I was with everything and how I needed something more serious to get things done. And I just wasn't being taken seriously enough as Melvin the Nerd, so I thought I would, put the cape and cowl into hiding, so to speak, and just come out and be myself and try to go with that. And the more frustrated I got, the better the teachings of Supreme Brett Powers sounded. Sweet honey in the ear.
So did you turn before Brett's influence, or was it Brett's influence that brought you to a full turn?
It was Brett's influence that brought me to the full turn.
Okay. And Brett's got that cult-like personality. He can really guide you down the wrong path if you let him.
Oh, definitely. It's a cult of personality, really.
I always loved Brett as a heel. He's real eccentric with his promos. Yeah. And even his music, when he was doing the Your Own Personal Jesus, but it was I think it was the Marilyn Manson version.
Yeah, he used the Manson version for a while, and then he changed back to the original. And then in the last match we did, he was using the Johnny Cash version of it.
Okay. Yeah, I loved that theme song. I just thought, everything that he did was just great. So he turned you full heel. How did that run work out for you?
I had a blast with Brett. I was playing his right-hand man, the henchman, and we wound up forming Team Supreme. It was myself, Brett Powers, the Cowboy James Hunter, and Paul Bowser was in it for a while, but I'm not quite sure where that got off to. But Brett and the Cowboy were just wonderful to work with. The Cowboy is a really smart wrestler. In the last interview that we did as Adam, it was a 4-man or 8-man tag, and I had said we don't even need a third partner. Totally blowing the whole thing, or so I thought. Didn't let it show on my face. I just rolled with it. And the Cowboy's over on the other side going, 1, 2, 3. Camera shuts off. And he says, now why you got to make the redneck be the only one with brains?
I don't think I ever met that fella.
Oh, he's fun. I think you'd like him a lot. He's super, just cool to be around.
Did you ever get a chance to go back to the Melvin character before you were done?
I did. At the very last part of the tag, early on in the tag match, I had, quote unquote, hurt my knee, blew it out doing a knee drop onto Peter. So I got carried back. I pulled the old switcheroo and did a quick change into my Melvin getup, and
that's good.
Team UPW had a mystery partner. Now Melvin was that mystery partner. Pete's wit and charm had won over Brett's supernatural spell-like abilities.
Okay, so you were in the same match on both teams at one point.
Yep. Yeah, I got to do my own little homage to Mick Foley, who's one of my all-time absolute favorites.
That's awesome. How did the crowd react to that?
It was, I don't know if it was just the adrenaline talking, but it was the loudest reaction I think I'd ever got.
Now, do you think the heel turn had run its course by then, or like had that not been your last night, would you have kept the heel character going for a while, or do you think it was getting close to time to bring Melvin back?
Well, the plan all along was to have me turn back to Melvin that night, because I was enjoying what I was doing as a heel, and I was learning a whole lot of new stuff, but heel just didn't seem to fit for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever actually hated? Do you think you ever got any genuine booing reactions from the crowd?
I think so. I made a fan cry when I turned.
Really?
Yeah, and
that's fun.
Got a whole bunch of boos and middle fingers from preteen girls, and
nice.
Yeah, so that was goal accomplished right there.
Did you lose your hair that night, or was it the night before one of the previous shows?
It was one of the previous shows.
How did that come about?
Well, I had a goofy haircut, and I really wanted to shave it off. Partially to make the wife happy, and partially to get this greasy mop off of my head. And I sent Pete a message and said, hey, why don't we do a hair versus hair, and you can shave my head.
Nice.
So we just went with that, and he took the time to shave a heart into the side of my head, which I don't know how many people saw besides me, but I thought it was clever.
That is funny. Plus, it's cool. It's got to be cool to wrestle a hair versus hair match. I mean, you see him growing up. I mean, it's probably just got to be fun to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. It was neat. So I can say my luchas de apuestas, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but my record there is 0-1.
Nice.
On that topic, I did actually take a lucha libre training camp.
Yeah?
During my time in UPW.
With who?
Let's see, there was Skyate Jr., oh my God, the names are escaping me, and I can see their masks right in front of me. I'm terrible with names, but I'm phenomenal with faces.
What do you? Yeah, I'm the same way, dude. Even when I think I'm almost positive I know your name, but I don't want to hurt your feelings or look stupid if I get it wrong. So I still don't say your name. I do that at work all the time. People are like, hey, Brandon, how you doing? I'm like, hey, what's up? How are you? I'll never forget a face, but your name, I don't know. I mean,
dude and man really find their way into my conversation a lot, or bud, chief.
Well, it's a good thing everybody's got working names in the locker room, right?
Yeah. But yeah, those lucha guys can really go, man. Their cardio is insane.
What do you learn from watching from a lucha camp that you don't learn from traditional styles of pro wrestling?
Well, it's the same style, but radically different at the same time. It's quicker, and I think it's, for me anyway, it's better. It's not suited to a guy my size, 6'4", 250 pounds. It's not exactly something that I would use on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But on the occasion that I'm called on to either work with someone bigger than me or work with someone that's doing the lucha stuff, then it would be, it's an absolute absolute blessing to at least be familiar with that kind of stuff.
Nice. Did you ever get a chance to work any other promotions, or was it all strictly UPW?
I worked with Under the Lights Entertainment.
For Bruno?
Yeah, for Bruno. I did one show in Wasaki for him.
Were you Melvin for him?
Say again?
Were you Melvin with him?
Yeah, I was Melvin.
Okay. How'd that go?
And that was fun. It wasn't the UPW locker room, but it was cool in its own right. UPW was where I was comfortable, but it was kind of awesome getting outside of my comfort zone and working around. I always tried to balance family and wrestling out as much as I could, and it led me to not take as many, all the bookings that I would have wanted, but hard to replace time with the wife and dogs and kid and
oh yeah, absolutely.
Doing the noble task of dishes and cooking and
all right, so it comes to the point, we talked about the night already, you turned back to Melvin. The night that you retired, did the crowd know it was or even the boys in the back, did everybody know that it was your last show that night?
Some of the boys knew, none of the audience, with the exception of my mom and my wife and my sister and her fiance.
Because you did a separate retirement ceremony. You came out, gave a farewell speech, took your bow, right?
Yeah, they gave me the mic after the match, and the show was billed as it's someone's last night in UPW.
Was it the same night then? It wasn't a separate show. Same show. You wrestled your last match and then did your goodbye promo?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
So they gave me the mic, and when you can see stuff starting to come together in some of the fans' eyes, and they get the "oh no" face, and so I said, "Yeah, it's really great to be back." Blah 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 blah. But I do have some bad news. It is my last night of wrestling, as in general. So what happened was I got this vitreal detachment somewhere along the line in my right eye, which is apparently the same thing that put Sugar Ray Leonard out of boxing.
What's a vitreal detachment for people that are dumb?
The best that I don't know what it is hardly, but the best way I can describe it is there's a tear near my retina and eyeball juice is leaking out.
Ew, that's kind of gross.
Yeah, and it's hard to say where this came from. Be it any one of the headshots that I took in Muay Thai, Taekwondo, couple scuffles that I got into in the Army, or up at college, or something in wrestling, or who knows what. Could have been something as benign as whacking my head on a door frame.
Okay, but this came from some sort of head trauma?
Yeah, that's the best guess we got right now. I actually have an MRI scheduled to see if there's any brain damage from the impact.
But you couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was, so there wasn't one thing that stands out as...
Yeah, there's no single event that I can figure, and I've really had my bell rung a couple times, but I didn't think anything was that severe. It must have just been one of those magic hits that put me down.
Yep. So, what's the risk of continuing wrestling with the eye gimmick?
Well, if I continue wrestling, I run the risk of losing sight in my right eye.
If you get another good shot, it could do permanent damage.
They said, Doc said that I could take 1,000 bumps and nothing would happen, or the next one that I take could do it. Apparently, any sort of hard impact to the body or head could cause the retina to tear away.
Wow.
So, that's something that I'd like to avoid, because I've always been a real big fan of depth perception.
Yeah, seeing things is pretty cool.
Yeah. Always just kind of been there.
Yeah. So how did you break the news to Pete?
How
did he take it?
I think the exact quote was, "Hey boss, I got some shitty news." But he said, "Oh my god, basically that's terrible. We're scrambling to try to figure out what to do and how to basically tie all the storylines up and just leave that knot right at the end."
So you did risk at least one last match. You did do your final match.
I did, but all the guys took such good care of me.
Okay, so you kind of spread that info around, hey, watch the headshots tonight.
Yeah, I didn't want to seem like I was complaining about it, so I didn't spread it around the locker room hey guys, it's my last one tonight,
right.
Blah 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 blah. But for the guys that I was working with, I said, hey, I can't bump, and you got to make sure to not hit me in the head.
Right on.
And I explained why, and aside from, just being really, really, really ridiculously good looking, and you don't hit me in the face or the hair.
Yeah, that match between Shawn Michaels and Rick Martel, you just don't punch each other in the face match.
Oh, I almost forgot about that one. That was great.
It's a classic. So, all right. So you had your last match. You're cutting your final promo. Do you feel like you got to say everything you wanted to say to that crowd, or did you go back and feel like you missed something, or did it go
I tried to tie it up in a Facebook post that I made after that because, I started getting really choked up because, this is the death of a dream. That's huge.
Yeah.
So I kind of got lost in the moment. I think I said the same thing 4 or 5 times in a row, just kind of babbling, but I generally got my point across there. But I guess I want to reiterate how much I really appreciate all the fans and all the wrestlers, managers, promoters, bookers, floor sweepers, et cetera, and so forth down the line that I've worked with. You especially, Chief, because you were on the very first show that I worked. And
yeah, man. I was there. What was the first show that you worked? Was it Supreme Justice?
Supreme Judgment.
With the Outlaws there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the second show that I did with Pete. So I was there all the way up until the Eugene show was my last show. So, I was definitely around for your early days, your first few anyway. I loved working with you,
It was a good time.
To be the guy that presented you with the Rookie of the Year award, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to mention that. That was, I consider that my actual first title because nobody's ever going to be the 2011 Rookie of the Year again.
Yeah, and I mean, you definitely were. I mean, it was, a lot of things in wrestling are obviously at work, but I mean, there was no storyline reason to, it's not like, there was no other reason than you were the Rookie of the Year to make you Rookie of the Year that year, So.
And Nathan Gust and I got to run a fun little back and forth about who was the actual Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, well, yes, I remember that now. That's great.
Nathan was another
he's a funny
absolutely fantastic human being to work with.
So, I'm kind of on that note here. I'm down to my last couple questions for you here. Who were some of your favorite people to work with? I know you dropped a few names along the way. Maybe talk about some other people that you didn't mention yet that really stood out. I mean, you don't want to leave anybody out and be like, well, this guy didn't mean shit to me to work with. I'm sure you took a little something from everybody. But I mean...
Yeah, truly all of my opponents were fantastic. I loved working with Greg Romero. He works out on the West Coast area. But, he was great to work with. He, another guy that just took phenomenal care of me, helped this big green bean come through a match looking pretty half decent. And Joseph Schwartz, I think, deserves double mention because he's the one that brought me kicking and screaming to my absolute best match, I think.
With him for the title?
Yeah, that was for the title. And it actually appears on his DVD that he's selling now. So if you want to check that out, I strongly recommend that you buy it from Joseph Schwartz and the Bomb Shelter.
Yes, buy Joseph Schwartz's DVD.
Let's see. Johnny Smash was another one that I felt like I had really good chemistry with. We had a great match and just really easy and fun to work with.
Is that kid as strong as he makes himself look?
Stronger.
He's a fucking beast, isn't he?
Yeah, that dude is an absolute animal.
I gotta say, I've always been a huge fan of Smash. Since the day I met him. I mean, not only is he a cool as shit guy, but just I've always loved his in-ring style. I love for how small he is, how big he carries himself.
Yeah.
He's not a tall guy, but he's ripped. He's really well built, and he comes off like he's stronger than shit. I got nothing but good things to say.
Most certainly is. When we were working that match with Eugene, he did that overhead toss suplex that Scott Hall did.
Yeah.
And he, from just dead weight, threw me over his head most of the way across the ring.
Yeah, Smash is a beast for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever
and Brett was another great guy to work with, and I got to work a couple matches with Pete, both normal rules and hardcore rules.
How was Pete to work with?
He was a dream. Man, what
a fucking pro, hey?
Absolutely. Anything that he lacks athletically, he more than makes up for with precision and just an ability to connect with the crowd and work them like it's no one's business. He is fun.
Yeah,
Came home, and after the match, I came home and told the wife that I would happily work with him 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed about Pete is just watching him work is what a professional he is. I mean, he looks like he's really taking good care of you out there, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he was like just a dream to work with. That's the best I can say of it. Like when Brett and I work together, there's just a general understanding that we're going to kind of beat the piss out of each other.
Yeah, now Brett, on the other hand, has a bit of a reputation to be a little stiff out there, is he not?
God, here's the funniest thing. For all the guys that complain about getting punched in the face by Brett, he never punched me in the face. He was fantastic. Just, you know, we worked a little bit snug with each other, but I never caught one of the Mighty Powers fists.
But you know about it, right? That's a thing.
I know about it. I've seen the results.
Not that he's sloppy either. He's stiff. Brett's a good worker. He's just he'll hit you. He's not scared. That's for sure.
And that's honestly kind of how I like to work. You know, I like to know what's going on out there. You know, like gotta feel it.
You get a better reaction if you have a little bit of something to go with, right? If you get punched in the face, you know how to sell a punch to the face.
Yeah, no work involved. You're just legitimately reacting. But we were doing a chop off or chop fest or whatever you want to call it, and it was the UPW heavyweight title match, and I come out and give him a whack, and he gives me a whack, and after the second set of chops, I looked over at him. End in this fucking thing. No more chops. And we came back with big black and blue marks on the chest, big, you know, gigantic red handprints, but it was fun. He and I we had good chemistry, and I think the audience enjoyed it too. I hope anyway. Well,
yeah.
I gotta talk about the claw real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now the claw, you just grab them by the head and squeeze until their brain leaks out of their ear.
Yep.
My old man was a big fan of Darren Von Raschke, from the AWA, and he used the claw.
Yep.
So my dad always used to chase us kids around the house with the claw, and for me, you know, my using the claw as the finishing move was kind of a nod to my dad, who was also a big fan of wrestling, and was one, you know, between him and his dad were the guys that really got me into it.
So you did the claw as an homage to him.
Yeah, he taught me the secret. I thought it fit the Melvin thing pretty good, you know, using older, you know, a bunch of older moves when you got a whole bunch of guys out doing, you know, 450 splashes, moonsaults, all kinds of crazy flippy things, hard-hitting stuff, and then I slapped the claw on.
Yeah.
And the crowd would still pop for it, which, you know, blew me away at first, but it's not about what you do, it's how you do it.
What was your favorite storyline?
Oh, the favorite one that I was involved with was probably the lead up to me winning the UPW title and all the way through my losing it. The lead up to it had me losing to Joseph Schwartz, the Hebrew Hammer, and then he turned into his gimmick right now, which is super cool. I'm such a huge fan of it. He's like the steampunk supervillain.
Right on.
If anyone was ever just truly meant to work heel, Schwartz is the guy. Man, he is so good. So good. So I lost the title opportunity to the Hebrew Hammer, worked my way back up, wrestled Brett for the UPW title, won, you know, made a couple defenses, and then the evil Joseph Schwartz came back around and beat me. So you got to see this full transformation of really two characters, because I wasn't supposed to lose to Schwartz that night. You know, when we first got this whole thing started, it was just kind of a total bork on my part. But it wound up working out to be a really fun story. These moments when wrestling is real.
What was your absolute all-time favorite match and your worst match?
Favorite match was me versus Joseph Schwartz for the UPW heavyweight title, the one that I lost.
The one on Joseph Schwartz's DVD that you can pick up right now.
That's right. You can find them on Facebook or the Twitter machine. Probably my least favorite, and it wasn't for anyone's fault but my own. It was also that this gauntlet match where Joseph Schwartz wound up beating me for the title opportunity. That was because I screwed up and I got lost in my head somehow and forgot what I was supposed to be doing.
So Joseph Schwartz is both your favorite and your worst match at the same time. Different matches.
Right, and the worst match was through no fault of his own because he was killing it through that match. It was a gauntlet match, and he was just going through and through and through. And a great match, and then I came out and stunk up the joint like a pro.
How do you want to be remembered to the UPW fans? Because, I mean, you've put in years in front of those people at this point. They definitely appreciate, what you contributed. What do you want your legacy to be in UPW?
I'd like to be remembered as a goofball primarily who really tried to go out and give the best that he had every single night. I think that's about the best you can say, a guy that was able to balance family and wrestling and just give the fans 100% when I was out there and give the family 100% when I was at home.
What are the chances that we see Adam or Melvin back in UPW in maybe a different role, a different capacity than a wrestler?
I'd say the chances are pretty good. I'd love to continue working with UPW in any aspect that they'd be willing to have me. I don't know. I know that the wrestling part of my career is over, but I think there's still some more that I can put out there.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and talking to me here. I want to thank you for letting me share some moments in wrestling with you. I mean, just like you, I grew up a big fan, and every moment that I spent backstage at a wrestling show or in the ring of a wrestling show, I mean, I was really just like a giddy little kid, you know what I mean, the whole time. Mm-hmm. So, the times that we spent, backstage in the ring, definitely want to thank you for that. And, man, I hope everything goes good for you. I hope you get to still go out there and have fun with the UPW and, live out some of your other dreams, kill it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on your show. And before we go, I just one more thing popped into my head. I want to thank Silas Young if he winds up listening to this. He said some really nice things to me after my last match, and that really helped to settle things with me and made me feel pretty good about it.
Silas Young's he's a fucking awesome guy too, for sure.
Yeah.
And really is truly the last real man in professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
All right,
Chief, thank you very much for having me, my man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Hope to talk to you again soon and see you down the line at one of the UPW shows,
All right, that sounds good.
All right, later, buddy.
See you.